sure most of you guys are already familiar with the Tren twins already, but unfortunately Mike had a very serious injury last night, and he basically wound up tearing his pec, and you can actually see it separate from the bone or the insertion point during his lift. And so now he's going for some serious weight, going for 600 pounds on bench, which that's even a crazy number just to think about bench pressing. I mean, 600 pounds, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys have, threw around 315, 405, but 600 pounds in your hands, holy shit. Viewer discretion is advised for this next clip that I'm about to show up, which is the injury, and you can actually see the chest pull away from the bone or tear away from the bone at the insertion point. So it's very graphic. I recommend if you're a little squeamish or about to hit the gym for chest day, just go ahead and skip forward so I can give you some tips on how to prevent pec tears in the future. Really hard clip for me to watch, hearing Mike cry out, and then also Chris in the background being like, oh no, panicking for his brother. And I'd never wish this on my worst enemy, because this is one of the injuries that could be career ending. And our prayers at Glorious Tessa Games go out to the Tren twins, and I hope that Mike is able to come back from this and come back even stronger and better than what he was before this incident even occurred. With that being said though, we're going to take this opportunity to educate you guys on how you can lower the chances of ever having a pec tear or pec injury in general. Now, for those that already know me, you know that I'm 180 pound body weight, doing 420 pounds raw on bench. So I've lifted very heavy for my body weight, and there's also multiple members in our gym that are over the 315 range for bench press. We've all had experience with pec strains and some minor pec injuries, but nothing like what Mike's going through right now. This is way more severe than anything I've faced, thank the good Lord, because when you're going for a PR like Mike was, that's when you're at the highest chance for injury. Now, I'm not saying that to avoid PRs in general, never go for your 1 rep max. But what I am saying though is if you constantly go for PRs, every day in the gym or every week even, you are significantly increasing the chance of a major injury no matter the lift, whether it's bench, squat, or deadlift, because most elite lifters only go up for a PR maybe 3 times a year. And that's pretty frequent, especially for the people that are really making a career, because most elite strongmen or powerlifters, they limit their 1 rep days to about 3 times in the year because they know how dangerous and how much of an elevated chance for injury there is. Now, obviously the Tren twins, as their name suggests, they're using PEDs. What often happens after especially prolonged period of use of PEDs, your muscles outgrow and kind of start developing way quicker than your tendons and ligaments, which leave them weaker and more susceptible to injury. And so if your tendons or ligaments are weaker, that means that the muscles and connective tissue that is connecting your muscles to your bone and bone to bone are going to be more susceptible to tears, such as this pec tear, where that tendon and muscle was pulled apart or ripped at that insertion point. That's why you were able to visually see his chest pop back, almost like a rubber band snapping. And that could be due to some of your PED usage, which is why most enhanced lifters take it very slow when it comes to doing PRs, when it comes to working with really heavy ass fucking weight. And that's to allow their tendons and ligaments to have a little more time to get adjusted to that heavy load that they're enduring and catch up with their muscle growth. So if you're using PEDs, don't just be going for PR after PR or PR like, oh, I feel great, we're dialed in. You gotta allow your ligaments and tendons time to catch up with your muscle growth, because if you don't, they're not going to be able to bear the stress or the load of the heavy PR you're trying to attempt. And especially this is true if you're ego lifting or chasing numbers, which goes into another tip, is you can avoid a lot of these injuries if you just leave the ego at the door. When you walk into the gym, you need to be focused on having a good beneficial workout, not just going up, throwing heavy ass weight up, and then missing out on a lot of volume, missing out on a lot of other sets of beneficial movements, and missing out some of your accessories. You need to be following a good split that works good for you. Don't come in trying to prove how good you are now to everybody else in the gym, because frankly, they don't care. So you need to focus on making yourself better by focusing on you, and don't be distracted wondering how other gym members perceive you. And obviously Mike has been working his ass off to try to get this PR. However, I feel like because of his status, he feels that he has to get that PR to get those likes, those views, and of course that good dopamine that we all love from hitting a PR. But regardless of status, what are your followers, what people in the gym, how they perceive you, whatever they think, it doesn't matter, because you know your body, you know how your workouts have been going, so you know if you need to be loading up the bar that heavy going for a PR or not. For example, 3 weeks ago, I kind of had a little strain going on in my left pec, and I think it was because I was getting too deep of a stretch, at the bottom. I was really working my pauses at the time. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to stop working on pauses, not go that deep, not relax, lose all that tension at the bottom. So we stopped doing as many pause sets and we backed off the weight a little bit. And yeah, my pec got a little bit better, but it wasn't 100%. I could still feel that it was still there. It just wasn't as inflamed as it was. So I was like, okay, we're just going to skip a day of chest. Therefore, reducing that training frequency for the muscle group that was inflamed. And sure enough, after I did that for a week, next week I came back, felt great. Pain's completely gone, been that way ever since. So you gotta listen to your body. You know your body better than any other program or anybody else does. I've chased numbers before. I was really close to 425 pounds on bench, but as I was chasing that PR, it kept getting further and further away from me because I wouldn't let it go. I would try my damnedest to get 425 every week, and that was putting a lot of stress on my pecs, and over time I was starting to feel it. I was like, okay, it's not coming right now, so let's dial back how much we've been doing, lower the training frequency, lower the amount of volume we're getting in, and give our chest time to be able to recover from the amount of intensity, the amount of volume, and the amount of load I was putting it under, because I was really stressing out my body for about a month, really chasing that 425 pound PR. After I pulled back, I haven't felt as comfortable since, and so I'm waiting until I have that perfect day, or in other words, I'm listening to my body and letting my body dictate when I'm ready for that PR rather than chase that number. So avoid trying to prove yourself, avoid ego lifting, and listen to your body. Other thing I can't stress enough is avoid static stretching before your workout. Don't be getting deep stretches in before putting your muscle over load, because sometimes those static holds, or if you go too deep in a stretch, you can damage your muscle, which makes it weaker and more susceptible to injury, especially when you put it under load after you've already damaged or weakened the muscle. So instead, we want to be doing dynamic stretching, which involves just regular bench press, and my personal favorite is a very low resistance band. I like using this to be able to stretch my shoulders out really good, be able to get some flies in with it, stretch my pecs, and then I like doing sets of 135 and really warming up, really focusing on my form, doing a couple sets slow and a couple sets normal speed. And this also increases my core temperature, which gets my body even more primed for my workouts. So you want to make sure you utilize dynamic stretching while also doing sets with low weight and doing a proper warm-up and not just throwing on weight and jumping up too quick. You might have been able to get away with that when you were younger, but as you get older, you become more prone for injury, especially when your muscles are tight and they're not properly warmed up. And if you're dealing with tight pecs currently, check out this video and the card up here. I really recommend doing the stretch right before bed, or maybe after your workout, after you've cooled down. As we saw in the video, Mike was using elbow sleeves, which, as you guys know, there's two different types of lifting. There's raw and there's equipped lifting, where people use elbow wraps, elbow sleeves, wrist wraps, whatever it may be for bench. And for squats, you got knee wraps and suits, and deadlifts, you also got suits, but you also have straps, which in my opinion, if you rely on equipment a lot, if you train with equipment a lot, you're going to make yourself weaker and more susceptible to injury. For example, if I started using straps for every deadlift day that I had, I would wind up losing strength in my grip. And that's because for your muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I would no longer be using my grip strength because the equipment would take the load off my grip and would supplement the lack of therefore in a few months after I've used nothing but straps. Now, don't get me wrong, I think straps are great, especially for exercises or accessory movements that really target the back and you're trying to prevent the use of your forearm muscles or your arm muscles. However, when it comes to elbow wraps, elbow sleeves, and slingshots, I feel a little bit differently. I personally feel they give you a sense of false confidence, where, for example, if you can do 275 pounds raw on bench, and then your buddy throws a slingshot on you, and now you can do 295 with horrible form. So after a couple weeks of training, you decide to throw on the bench shirt again and go for 315 because you just want that nice 315, that nice 3 plate on each side, beautiful PR, and you never fix your form and you never increase in your strength. And so now, using the slingshot for its purpose, you come down with really good speed and you're trying to just slingshot it right back up. Unfortunately, your form is awful, so when you come down and you're trying to go back up, you're in a contorted position, you're straining your muscles because you're not strong enough to press it up, and you wind up injuring yourself. Or you use elbow sleeves or elbow wraps, and it gives you a sense of false confidence or security. And the thing about equipment, whether it's a bench shirt, elbow wraps, elbow sleeves, you tend to go down more quickly with a bar than you would without them. And that's because you're trying to capitalize on that resistance, on that rubber bandy movement where it goes down and then it helps you press it back up. You're trying to utilize it to get the bar off your chest, and then you'll just press it all the way back up. However, the problem with that, the faster you go, usually the more sloppy you are. Now, Mike had really good form. He was very slow on this movement. So I'm not saying that Mike had bad form or sloppy or too fast. In my opinion, he executed this movement as perfect as possible. And unfortunately, there was another factor, whether his pec was already injured and he was either aware of it or unaware of it. Maybe he didn't warm up enough. Maybe it's the PED usage in weak tendons and ligaments, or it could have just been a freak accident. These things happen. This is the risk you take, especially when you lift heavy. So you want to make sure you control the weight, which is another great thing that Mike did in this. He was very controlled. His form was great. His bar speed was very normal. It wasn't fast. It wasn't rapid. It wasn't like he was just trying to hit his chest, break his sternum, trying to press it up, and really capitalize on the extra springiness of his equipment, which is more commonly seen with new lifters. But if you control the weight on the way down and on the way back up, and you're not trying to break your sternum and you're avoiding bouncing it on your chest just to get an extra rep or two, you can really lower the chance of a pec strain or pec tear from occurring. So I'm not saying don't use equipment. What I'm saying is don't rely on equipment. Don't use it on every workout. If you're feeling a little flare up in your elbow, sure, go ahead. Use those elbow wraps, use those elbow sleeves if you feel it's necessary. However, I think it's better to listen to your body because you're just prolonging the inevitable, which is either an injury or having to take a break or change the way you're training. You can't rely on equipment forever to get you through an injury. That pain or discomfort you're feeling is your body's first response to, hey, you're doing too much, or hey, something isn't right. Let's either check our form or let's come back to our training frequencies or the amount of load that you're putting us under. So to recap on how to avoid pec injuries in general, you want to make sure if you are using PEDs, you're not going for PRs too quick. You have to give your tendons and ligaments time to catch up with your muscles because your muscles are experiencing rapid growth. You want to avoid ego lifting. You're not training to prove how good you are right now. You're training to get better. And before you start your workout or training session, you want to make sure you're warming up and doing so properly with dynamic stretching, which can include a resistance band. And in this case, doing the movement, which is bench press, at very low weight and doing some sets slow and some sets normal. And that way you're really capitalizing on making sure your bar path is good, your form is good, and giving your body enough time to properly warm up. And if you're experiencing any pain in your chest during or after your workout, listen to your body. Take the time off. Take that second day of chest day, throw it out the window, go on those 2 days of rest, come back. If it's still there, take that day off too, or really decrease the amount of training frequency that you're getting in, or really decrease the load for that day. Really do a light day. Don't rely on equipment. I understand if you compete and you want to get into your suit or you want to use your equipment, when you're getting closer to meet, but don't rely on it. Don't implement it to every workout because you're going to wind up setting yourself back. You're going to wind up making yourself weaker if you rely on equipment. And lastly, you want to make sure you control the weight on the way down. Especially, you want to make sure you're avoiding the bounce, avoid breaking your sternum by trying to bounce the weight up just to say you got the weight up. Especially if your ass is shooting to the moon, work on your form before you try to just break your sternum. Just trying to throw numbers up. I hope this feels informational for you guys. If you guys got any other tips on how to avoid a pec injury, let me know in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a good morning and a good night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.